trim. But at the beginning of COVID, I got lazy, and I was like, well, let's just keep it going.
Yeah. And the hair. Now you fall in with me. I'm going bald as well, and similar. Like it's thick here, but it's just
Yes,
losing up here. But it's
it's
just that
gone.
tiny little sliver.
Yeah, it's I call it the cul-de-sac. That's what I got going on.
Very nice. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. All things considered. How about you?
Not bad. I mean, I've only lived in LA now just over 2 years, and it's except for fucking comedy stopping, it's each year's been better. We live in a better place. It's nicer, like kind of getting a feel for the city a lot better. So
Mm.
other than no comedy at all, and even now there is some random outdoor stuff coming up, but other than that, yeah, everything's going well.
Good, good. How much are you able to get up per week now?
Now, if you want to, pretty much every day, you can get up once, maybe
Really?
twice. Yeah, at some sort of outdoor type thing. And then if there's a couple indoor things, but they're like at the level where you're like, the people there, like the environment, it's just as slightly beneficial to be there or an outdoor place where you're like, there's a few more respectable people here, and I'm not getting anything out of going into that fucking, there most of those inside ones are in like weird places too.
Damn. Okay. Okay. If you can get up every day, that might mean it's time to come back soon.
Are you thinking of coming back? Did you just go because roommates moved and stuff?
Well, I went because what's it called? The roommates moved, and then so to move into a new place, I'd have to sign a lease, and I wasn't at the time that was going on. We were talking, cases were so high in California at that point. I wasn't exactly sure if signing a year-long lease in Los Angeles was the right move.
Yeah.
And now it seems to be coming back. I think my plan is to wait till the end of winter, but I do eventually want to come back and either to New York, probably not sorry, New York, so either to LA, maybe even New York, but I guess time will sort of tell what happens before I make that decision.
Yeah. So this will lead us into a good start. It's called, the podcast is To Live and Bike in LA. Talk
Okay.
somewhat about biking, but we also go off and, whatever we end up talking about.
Hmm.
You are from the Bay Area, right?
Yes.
So growing up there, and did you start comedy there?
I started comedy down in San Diego, actually,
Oh,
because
that's
that's where
right.
I went
Because
to
you worked at the
school.
San Diego store too, right?
Yes. Yeah. I started at the San Diego store.
So what made you start down there? Were you going to college or something?
Yeah, I was in college. I was in my third year of college, and I just sort of hated it. I didn't enjoy college at all. Not that it was a bad experience, but it just wasn't what I wanted to be doing.
Yeah. What
So,
were you doing in college?
like neuroscience stuff.
Ugh.
Um, yeah, it's not like it was interesting. It's just it was fun, but I didn't want to make a career out of it. And I
Yeah.
always wanted to do comedy, and then I started it, and then things sort of took off from there.
Now, were you looking into the field of being a doctor or something? Is that why you're headed that way?
Originally, when I started college, that was the plan. Yeah, when I started college, that was the plan. I remember it faded pretty quickly though, because I remember even in orientation, they asked, there was like a classroom full of 300 kids, and they asked who in there was pre-med, and I went to UC San Diego, which is a big pre-med school. And so like more than half the class raised their hand, and I was like, I don't have a shot. I'm not willing to compete against this many people. I don't care about it that much.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I took a few years before I went to college, and
Mhm.
I remember thinking like, fuck, I gotta go to school now. Cause like I injured myself and like kind of ruined my dream of being an athlete. And
Mhm.
I was like, I don't want to, have nothing. I got to go to college. And I remember my orientation or first day going into some classes and just being like, I gotta fucking get through this, but in no way am I excited about that. It's just more fucking school, and I did not like school in the first place.
Yeah, I feel that you were gonna be you had a dream of being an athlete.
Yeah, I want to be a pro skier. That was my first thing.
Oh damn! What happened? You said you got injured.
Injured myself when I was 19. I blew my knee out, and
Oof.
I never really like. I wasn't a rich kid. I grew up at the bottom of a ski mountain. That's how I got into it. But it's a real rich
Mm,
sport, and to like
mm,
take the time off to train and stuff at 19, like after I hurt myself to get back into it. I just didn't have the money. It would be like working so much. And I kind of saw a lot of people that I started with like, oh, the career doesn't go much past like 25. And I'm already
right.
19. So maybe I should start looking for other things. But I was totally lost. Like I went to college and didn't like any of it, but then found stand up through, college and doing theater and shit there, and luckily found it because I was like, nothing ever excited me like skiing did before until stand up came along.
Until stand up, damn, yeah. So the last few months must have been. I mean, it was rough for me not being able to get up at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's been weird. It was at first. I mean, how long have you been doing it?
7 years.
Yeah, 7. I've been 9 years, and it
Hmm.
was 9 years of like immediately starting all the time. And so, in some
Right.
way, to take a little bit of a break and know everybody was taking a break, it's like a little relieving in that way. But then, yeah, you get fucking itchy, and you're like, I gotta do something again.
Yeah, it is. I do look at all the people in LA with envy because they're like, oh, they're getting up quite a bit now. That's really starting again. So I'm very curious as to what the next few months are going to look like.
Yeah. Are you doing anything around there? Has there been anything opening up? What part of the Bay Area are you in?
I'm in the South Bay, so Silicon Valley. I get up once a week, about, which is not bad. It's good enough. You know what I mean? It's like I'm able to get up enough, and I'm able to work out my new thoughts enough a little bit. So I've been sort of using the podcast I've been doing as like sort of working a way to work out some bits. So like
Yeah.
some of the bits that I want to bring on stage, I've definitely tried on the podcast for sure.
Which is
So
why I saw one of your clips and it made me like, when I'm thinking about booking people, I just like half the time look through Instagram and go, who do I like that I haven't talked to yet? And somebody will put
mhm,
up something and I'll be like, oh, that's good. And I haven't talked to them in a while. Let me see if they'll do it. And you put
mhm.
up a clip about Saddam Hussein, which if people should go to Hassan's Instagram page and check it out because it's like a 10-minute clip about how he became a dictator. And that was my focus other than theater in college was history and the history of the modern Middle East.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, like pretty much the breakup of World War One, the breakup of the Ottoman Empire, and then how they became how they are, and who, at first the people that were installed by the French and the British, and then the kind of dictators that took over for them, 20 to 40 years later. Um, but his is a crazy one. His is a crazy one because of what you explained in that clip, how he took over, but also in the Middle East, he was one of the first, um, although slightly religious, not a religious takeover of the government, a more just like dictator person.
Yeah, from what I read, it was more nationalist, right? So it was
Yeah,
more
totally.
like the Arab ethnicity sort of guy. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, he wasn't. I think I had to cut it out of the clip because Instagram has like content time limit if you don't have that many followers. So, but I did say this. I did say if there was like a statesman Hall of Fame, I think he would definitely be in it in terms of just how much of the world sort of what's the right word? How much conversation he took up in the world political space.
Yeah, I would say like an Iverson, maybe. Like
Okay. Okay.
short career, could have had more, but like,
Hmm.
but definitely like out of nowhere, hey, this guy fucking kicked down some doors and did some shit in an area that I think the rest of the world for the most part was like, we kind of have a lid on the Middle East, like people stay in line where we want to, as far as like the Western world controlling it and stuff. And then all of a sudden it was the first kind of real big chaos outside of Israeli Palestinian conflict.
I like that. He's the Iverson of the Middle East. That makes sense.
So going back to you're growing up in the Bay Area.
Mhm.
Were your parents in like Silicon Valley industry? Is that why you were there?
Not really, but they're still like in heavily, like I would say I call them brown jobs. My mom's a dentist, my dad's an engineer.
Okay.
Not really in the software industry, but the jobs sort of lined up in the same area. So
Yeah. Is
yeah.
that and now what is are you Iraqi? Is that why you chose that one?
No, no, no.
Oh.
I'm Bangladeshi, so I'm South
Oh, okay.
Asian. I just chose that one. The podcast is called the Dangerous Brown Podcast, by the way, for anyone who wants to check it out. But I just like history things. I
Yeah.
just like history. And I had come across that story, and I remember watching the video a long time ago. And then so I was like, oh, I remember this. And then I did it, and then I watched the whole 40-minute video of the purge online, and I was like, oh, this is crazy. Like, if I talk about it, some people will be interested in it for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And also just comics have a better view on like those things of being able to talk about, like take almost not the emotion out of it, but like, hey, look, we all know this was wrong. But on a level, look what he did here.
Yeah, I think I called it beautiful political theater, and it was beautiful theater.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the tortured guy, like just sitting there being like, and he was like, come on, let's go.
Yeah, just staring off in the distance. It was some wild stuff. I can't believe it's just free for anyone to watch.
And well, and that being so public too, because other dictators who have taken over in, overnight coups and stuff, it's usually, like in Iran, there was the revolution, and then you didn't see any of the control taken. It was just all of a sudden this guy came out as, hey, I totally came out and it's like, I run everything now, but you didn't all the torture and the deciding who's going to stay and who's going to go and stuff kind of happened behind closed doors. And this is, very public thing that happened.
Yeah, it's a pretty, for most dictator stories you hear, it's a pretty big departure. It's like, okay, this guy is making everything public, and that's its own level of power.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was definitely like a flex in his way.
Yeah.
Um, so growing up there, were you, and this is the question that we usually kick it off for everybody. Were you riding bikes growing up?
At the very beginning, yeah. Usually it's a like it's where I grew up. It's definitely like a teenage thing, because pretty much everybody by the time they're 16, 17 has a car here.
Yeah.
So the bikes go out of fashion real quick. It's
Real
more
quick.
like
Yeah.
yeah. You get together, you go with your friends, and sort of hang out. I did spend one summer in a research internship when I was a senior in high school in Davis. And I don't know if you've ever been to Davis, but
I have not. I've heard of it, but no, I haven't been there.
yeah, it's almost made for bikes.
Yeah.
Meaning that there's like straight up roads with bikes, and it's like that. I think that summer is the most I've ever been on a bike. It was just constantly riding one.
And it was almost easier just to go get around on a bike.
Oh yeah, it's like I said, it's made for. It's almost the exact opposite of LA, where I feel like anyone who rides a bike in LA, you're sort of playing with your life a little bit,
Definitely.
especially if you're riding on like Sunset or something. Whereas in Davis, it's almost like I would rather move around with a bike than have a car.
Yeah. Boston is a lot like that. I lived in Boston for years. Some places are good bike lanes and stuff, but and some places you really got to watch out. But as far as the layout of the city, it's all pretty flat. And parking is so terrible, and a lot of times traffic is terrible that, yeah, you're just way better to skip around on a bicycle if you're just going from like one little part of the city to the other. But where I grew up was very rural, and it was the thing of like, as soon as you could get a license, you were in a car, because the school I went to was 25 miles away. But definitely the first range of mobility you got was 11, 12 years old, being able to ride your bike and just at least being able to get over to your friend's house and having that world just kind of open up like maybe 5 miles more.
Yeah, it really does open up the possibilities of what you can do. Like the first bike, I feel like, is always sort of like a romantic thing. Like that's how I look back on it.
Oh yeah. Do you remember your first bike?
Yes, I remember. I remember the first bike I had. The one that was, it was one of those like ones for kids, and the way you stopped it was by pedaling backwards.
Pedaling backwards, yeah.
I remember that. And
did you ever fuck yourself up on a
hill?
hill by accident with one of those?
No, you know what? I never lived in a hilly place. Where I grew up, Cupertino in the Bay Area, is incredibly flat.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's great. I did not. I always thought of all of that area as having some real good hills to them.
They do have hills, but like at the time, at the age, there was no way I was gonna bike to one of those hills. You know what I mean? Where my parents live now is super hilly. So if I was a kid now, then I would have definitely have fucked myself up at some point. But Yeah, it was always, yeah, I grew up in a very flat place. So I never really got into, no, I didn't really get into any bad crashes or nothing like that.
Any breaks as a kid? Were you a sports guy at all?
I played volleyball in middle school. That was the extent of my sports uh experience. I'm actually fairly athletic for someone who, looks like me, but I was always so short that I always got overlooked for stuff,
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
but you had the drive in you. You had the killer instinct.
Yeah, I'm when it comes to sports, I'm very good at seeing the field. I got good vision. So, like, whenever we play basketball, like I was in a comedians basketball league, not a league, a comedians basketball pickup game that we
Yeah,
did every like Tuesday or whatever. And I would be point. I would be the guy up top who would pass in and out because I've always
distributor.
had vision. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always
That's
had vision.
interesting. And you never played basketball in school.
No, no, no. They never they always sort of overlooked me, which I always hated because I have a good jump shot,
Yeah.
and I'm a very good passer. So I can like thread needles and stuff like that.
Did you try out?
Yeah, I did try out.
Oh, do you remember not getting? Was it just like a hang of the piece of paper and you run up and see if your name's on it?
Yeah, it was that. And I remember so many people would try for the basketball team that I would just remember like, oh, okay, like in certain drills that they would use to look at the tryout, if no one passes the ball to you, you're kind of just screwed, right?
Yeah, you don't even.
So
It's like you don't even get a chance to audition.
yes, yes, and that's what it was like. It was like, damn, I tried out 2 years in the eighth grade. I was like, I get it. I'm not gonna get a chance.
Ugh.
Hmm.
I remember I gave up school baseball. The other sports other than skiing that I did were baseball and soccer. And we had a town baseball team and a school baseball team. And in 8th grade, or no, 7th grade, uh we went from first through or kindergarten through 6th grade, we had like our small town school, and then middle school and high school we went to regional high school, so it was like 8 towns came together.
Okay.
And all for K through 6, the town I grew up in, Harrison, we didn't play in the same league. We played a bunch of different towns than the rest of the towns in our high school. So when you got to middle school, all of those kids had been playing each other from, kindergarten through 6th grade, and they all knew each other, played against each other. And
Mm,
then we came in and it was the same thing. Like, I think I got out one at bat during tryouts and like never got like put in positions to really showcase, and I fucking gave up on it. I was like, I'll keep playing town ball, but like fuck this shit. I like they're just all friends.
yeah, it's all everything is politics. It's never not politics, no matter what.
Yeah, and that was the other thing too. We had this coach who was a real piece of shit, and he ended up getting fired for like hitting on middle school girls.
Oh,
And yeah, he was gross. And he actually got knocked out. So he was I don't know if your high school had this. Some coaches weren't smart enough to be teachers. They didn't have like their degree or whatever. And so they would make them
okay.
study hall teachers because you had to work at the school to coach for the school. And so they're like,
Hmm.
what job can we give him? So he was a study hall teacher, and he ended up having an affair with some kid's mom. And the
Whoa.
dad found out, and the dad was a amateur boxing champion and fucking knocked him out in the parking lot of the high school because he tried to swing at the dad. The dad confronted him and was like, you're fucking my wife. And then he took a swing at a national champion and he just like dodged, boom, knocked him out in the parking lot.
Was it in front of students?
I think a few. It was early morning. It was probably like 6 in the
Damn.
morning or so, and there was a couple people saw it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and then he got fired. I think the next year for saying some weird, creepy shit to like a 7th grader or something.
Oh, that's that guy just sounds like an asshole.
Oh yeah, total piece of shit. And that was the baseball coach. So that was the guy who was
Mhm.
being real, clicky and would only talk to the people he knew and shit. And then I found that out, and I'm like, I'm glad I've never fucking played for that guy.
Right. Okay.
Um, but okay, so you went straight from Bay Area to San Diego for college,
Yeah. I went to school there.
and then you start in San Diego. Now, I've done now San Diego a bunch, but was like Lestat's around then, was
Ye-
Twigs, and
Yeah, so Lestats and Twigs. So that was sort of so those are great shows, but
yeah,
they weren't like the mainstays of the scene at the time. Meaning that like
you got the
get on those
Store and
shows if you're in the scene.
Madhouse.
Don't get me wrong, Marie. Yeah, the Store
Yeah,
Madhouse. That's where like the daily grind was. The
yeah,
Store Madhouse, and at the time, Madhouse had 7 open mics a week.
yeah, because they
So
just used to do every night starting at like 10 o'clock or something. It would be open
after the
mic.
show,
Yeah,
no matter what, and it would go till like 2 in the morning. So it was that was sort of the heart and soul of the San Diego scene. And because there was so much time, there was a lot of people got good pretty quickly at like an accelerated rate. I mean, there was a time when I was working at the Comedy Store in Hollywood, at least I mean, I'd have to count them, but off the top of my head, I'd have to say at least 7 of the door guys came through the Madhouse scene.
yeah. I was gonna say I
As
know at
far as I
least
was
like
working there.
3 or 4 guys that all were, you, Austin, who Derek started down there too.
Yeah, Derek.
Yeah,
So it would be Derek, me, Austin, Matt Lockwood, Jeffrey Berner, Isaac Allen, Brian Simpson. And I think I may even be missing one off the top of my head that I can't like think of. And then like Ron Taylor, who wasn't a San Diego guy, but that's how we met because he would come down to Madhouse all the time
yeah,
before he got hired at the store. So it's like it was churning out a lot of good comics
yeah.
for a while.
Yeah,
It
and
was
for
intense.
listeners, if you don't know some of those names, it's one of those crazy things where, like, the time I was in Boston, starting to hear of some of those people now, but it's like one of those things where you realize, like, oh, in about 10 years, I will have started with like, 6 of the fucking biggest names, but nobody knows who they are right now.
Yeah, that's how it feels like.
Were you biking in San Diego? Great question. I have biked in San Diego.
No, by the time I got to San Diego, my first year at school, I didn't have a car, but I never really left campus, and the bus system wasn't that bad. And
Yeah.
then second year I had a car, so I'm not a very big bike guy actually, just because of like I've always just had access to a vehicle, and I've never lived in a place that was super conducive to biking. I wouldn't say San Diego is the most conducive to biking either. Everything is very
It's
spread out.
parts of it are like there's sections of town, but then other sections it gets real tricky. Like if you go off the back side there, past like University Heights, and how it
Hmm.
all goes downhill from there. Like if you're over on that side trying to get up to the University Heights there, like fuck a bike. Unless you're like a Lance Armstrong, like I'm gonna put on all the gear and do it. Yeah, it's not exactly the most cohesive to biking.
Yeah, and it's like if you're in like even let's say if you're in Mission Bay or whatever, and you have to get to La Jolla, really there's no way to
Oh
bike
no,
that.
yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
found that weird. Or even like Coronado or something. Like they don't you got to drive out to that shit. They're like, we're not even gonna make a walking thing. We're not gonna have any sort of, they have a couple trains that go around town, but not to those places.
yeah. It is very much like you can bike in San Diego if you stay in your area, but if you want to leave your area, it's done. You got to take a car.
Well, it seems that way with a lot of just San Diego in general. They're like, hey, stay in your area. Like we moved out to this rich place because we didn't want you here. Stay in your area. What is that? Where's that brewery that's part of Comedy Heights? Chula Vista.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Chula
very
Vista,
much.
Mission
It
Bay
seems like
Brewery.
everybody that lives in Chula Vista, they're like, stay in your area.
San Diego is segregated, but not by race so much, but by attitude. I mean, there is a racial element going on too, but there is certain places that like if you are this type of person, you want to live in this area.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it seemed like it's a bit attitude, wealth, and military are some of the big things
Oh
that
yeah.
separate it. Like, because there's like the whole University Heights college area has become very hipstery, and it is like if you're into that type of area, you go live up there. If you're military, you probably live down closer to the bases, and if you're rich, you're out on La Jolla or Coronado or like up in the hills somewhere.
Yeah, that is very much the case. Yeah, I would say I would say it is definitely segregated by ideas and
Yeah.
how people want to live life.
One of my favorite things, and I haven't done it yet, but I want to just because you can, is that you can take the local metro straight to the border and then just get off
Mm.
and walk across the border.
Oh yeah, I was always too afraid to do that. I was like,
I know
I don't need to.
it seems sketchy. It seems like you shouldn't be able to do that, but I'm like, yeah, I guess you technically can.
It seems like something I'd be much more comfortable doing if I was white. That's how I feel about
For
that.
sure,
Yeah.
yes, and or Hispanic, because I get scared walking over to the other side, going, I don't know what anybody's fucking saying. That's the thing that freaks me out the most about. Like, I don't mind other
Mhm.
areas, and I've traveled a lot around the world, but as soon as I just really don't have a clue what's going on, I get fucking nervous.
Oh yeah, when you don't understand what if you're gonna have trouble communicating with the people, then it's like okay, I might end up in a weird situation.
Right? Yeah, that's why.
Mhm.
Like, my wife speaks Spanish, and I like having her around in case. And like the only thing I know is fucking sign language, and that's usually deaf people aren't trying to rob you, so it doesn't
No.
come in useful ever.
Is your wife
uh,
Hispanic or she just knows Spanish?
no, she just knows it. She's
Mm.
Jewish from Connecticut, but she lived in Spain in college for a year and studied all in college and stuff.
That's a good skill to have, not knowing another language. It's huge.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about this for this other thing I've been doing of online education, but how terrible our education system is as far as teaching other languages. Nobody comes out of high school knowing another language unless they themselves decide to go into it.
I mean, but the reality is there? Well, I guess they teach other languages in other countries pretty well because everyone knows English. But I was like,
Yeah.
how do you teach it without immersing yourself in the actual place?
Well, for one, I don't know how your school was, but we had like a separate language, but you'd have it for an hour, maybe twice a week, opposed
R-
to you're going to take an
Right.
hour of it every single day. And then
Mm.
maybe even we're going to have your math class will also be in a language. So, like, as you are learning new math, you're learning the new language through that new math and stuff. Like, that's how they do English
Okay.
classes in other languages. You take English every single day, and then some schools even depending where you are, you take English and you take a couple other classes in English, but they're not necessarily English classes. But then you also do that with your own
Okay.
language. You take if you're in France, you take French as a language like you would here. We had English class to
English.
learn how to fucking read and shit. But yeah, they just don't. If you go into it in college and go in specifically, you will come out. You have to come out fluent. But the way we have it set up, like, it's just like they don't care if you really actually learn a language coming out of high school.
No, it seems like language classes, at least when I took it in school, because I took 4 years of French in high school, it seems like it's just something to look good on college apps. Like, look, I did French honors and yada, 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 stuff like that.
To look good, give you a tertiary view of another culture or something. And then
Right.
that was the other thing that bothers me, is what we teach for languages are like, in our school it was Latin, French, or Spanish. And it's
Okay.
Spanish, somewhat useful in the US, not so useful in Maine, but in other parts of the US. But like French and Latin, like, yeah, Latin if you want to be pre-med or understand language better. But the world we're going into, it's like, oh, we should probably all learn Chinese, or we should all
Oh,
learn,
yeah.
or like, even like, hey, we're at war with people, why don't we learn their language just so we know what the fuck they're saying about us? But it's like they don't encourage languages that are going to be useful to like the world you're entering.
Yeah, no. What good is French gonna do me?
None.
Like
None.
they should have made everyone take Spanish because especially in California, like you should
Yeah.
just learn how to speak Spanish.
Yeah, I mean that Canada, for no reason, they do French, but they do. You have to be bilingual. They make everybody take
Mhm.
everything. But yeah, it's like, if you're preparing somebody to go out in the world and you're like, here's this language, when are you going to speak that? But almost never. You're going to have to seek out a place to go speak that language.
Right, absolutely. So it's like it just doesn't make any sense.
Did you grow up in a multi-language household?
Yes, but I can't speak the second language. So my parents speak Bengali, and I can't. I can understand it. So when they speak Bengali, like Bengali to me, I can interact with them. but I can't speak it. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with practice. I think my parents got really comfortable just speaking English at home
Yeah.
because my parents go back and forth. Sometimes they speak Bengali to each other. Sometimes they speak English to each other. Like it's just not. It's almost unconscious, I think, at this point that the way they communicate.
Yeah.
So I think they just got super comfortable speaking English to me, and then I sort of lost the grip on the language.
Yeah. Would you say also it seems that it's generational with different immigrants or people just who grew up speaking a different language, like even in East Coast, like Italian, there's times in history when it's hey, assimilate and for don't teach your kids that at all. You want them to have the best shot or whatever, and then it goes back to like, absolutely, we want to carry on our tradition. Feel like that's how it is a lot more now. Like kids growing up, like it's more like, hey, teach them our customs too and have them carried it on, less assimilation pushing for.
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. I will say personally for me, a lot of like for me growing up is I wanted to be quote unquote American. So on my end as a younger kid, it was a sort of a lot of rejection of
You
the
didn't, yeah. Do you make
culture.
fun of them?
I didn't
Shut
make
up with that in my house.
yeah. Go back to where you came from. No, I would, but no, you know, you have this. I had this idea of what it was to be an American, and I wanted to be that. And so I would sort of push away that sort of culture just because, like, oh, that's them, and that's not American, quote unquote. Now
Yeah.
that I have a deeper understanding of what this actually is, like, you know, a part of me when I was younger, I wish I embraced it more. Now that I know that it doesn't matter, and that's also part of being American, is being where you came from is a part of it. And
Yeah.
but yeah, I definitely when I was younger, I definitely pushed it away. You could sort of see like a lot of times brown people like Indian or Bengali or like Pakistani, they have a lot of Indian, Bengali, Pakistani friends. Most of my friends are pretty racially diverse. In fact, I don't think I really have any brown friends, funnily enough.
Is there any sort of Bengali community there?
Yeah, it's pretty big. It's pretty big. I've always been sort of outside of it,
Yeah.
just by the way I grew up. My parents are I wouldn't describe them as social butterflies. They're very good in social situations, but they never seek them out.
Yeah.
So it's like I sort of was outside of the culture a little bit.
Yeah, because I was going to say that could also, if you grew up Latino in LA, you would have a useful reason for using both Spanish and not just outside of your household, but you could go to school and also speak Spanish with, every other fucking Latino kid in your school. But if you're in a place where you're like, I didn't have a pack of friends at school that I was going to go speak that with, then obviously, yeah, it's just going to be at home that you're going to pick it up.
Yeah, and at school I had no Bengali friends, so I'd just be speaking English all the time.
What type of kid were you in high school? Like
Um,
who are you hanging out with? Were you smoking weed ever? Were you
I've always been a nerd. I've always been a deep nerd. I was a nerdy kid. Um, my friends were pretty funny. I've always had a funny group of friends. That was the sort of mine. I, I was in drumline the last couple of years, so that
fuck
was where I spent
yeah.
most of my time. My friends in the band.
Can you still
Um,
play? Do you still play drums at all?
nah, nah. It's that skill is so far gone. Um,
Were you just doing, because I was in marching band in middle school, and then I kept playing music after that, but quit band. But were you just doing like a solo snare?
no, I was a bass drum, so
Oh,
I didn't
nice.
even get to snare. But and I joined the drum line just because I wanted to hang out with my friends because all my friends were in the band, and so that's how it happened. And it just turned out I had an aptitude for the bass drum. Like I got pretty good at it to the
So you
point
have
where
rhythm.
I have rhythm. Yeah, to the point where you know how there's those like professional marching band groups. I don't know if you know them, but like the Blue Devils and the Vanguard. These professional marching band groups.
Yeah.
I was going to try out for one, but I decided against it.
What made you decide against it? You say that like it was a big decision.
It wasn't a big decision, but the reality was like that was going to take a bunch of my time, and I just kind of wanted to hang out with my friends more so than I wanted to like join, have this experience. I wanted to, second semester, senior year, you want to just all I did was hang out with my friends, and that's when I started smoking pot. You know what I mean? So
Nice. Yeah.
I just wanted to relax, pretty much.
Yeah, with other stuff was that was the thing with skiing was my first obsession. Even music, I liked it and I liked learning it, but I would eventually put it down or get tired where like I wasn't just completely obsessed about it and never even thought of it as work. Um, but my senior year, I'd smoked weed here and there, partied here and there. But then my senior year, I left school for a month to go do all of these ski competitions, and I stayed 1 week in Colorado with. I was sponsored by this company, and I was supposed to be staying with them at the U.S. Open and then at the X Games, and there was a week in between that I didn't have a place to stay, and so the guy who owned the company set me up with a friend of his in Steamboat Springs, and I stayed with him and did nothing but take bong rips and like drink and ski all day and had such a blast. And I came back from that like fucking wearing Sublime shirts and like I'm fucking weed now. That's all I do is smoke weed and ski, baby.
Man, that's what that time in your life is for. It's for just hanging out and chilling. I feel bad. My sister was her second semester senior year was the pandemic, so she never got that whole
she just
hanging out experience.
graduated.
She just graduated, and her first year of college is
Yeah, she should have taken a year off. I don't feel like this
should've.
isn't even a year to go to fucking college.
But at the same time, like even if she didn't take a year off, what was she gonna do? It's not like she was gonna travel. You know what I mean? So
that's true.
might as well stay home and do some classes. But yeah, I feel bad for her and her friends because they'll come hang out, and I just feel bad for them because like they'll talk about like I'll overhear them talking about like their school or whatever, and it's like, oh, y'all are supposed to be there having your first year of college experiences, and instead you're still just sort of chilling at home.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see this group of, I would say probably like 12 to 18-year-olds right now,
Right.
what in 10 years, what they end up being, how this affects them, how everything else, fucking social media and all that shit has affected them by the time they're in their late 20s and 30s.
Yeah, what the environment, how the environment changing is going to affect them. Like they're going through a lot right now.
Yeah. The only thing that makes me optimistic, and it makes me pessimistic for myself and my generation, is that they have so much better grasp of technology than even we do. And we had a better grasp than the generation before us. But I still feel like I got technology and computers and shit like coming into my early teens and in high school and stuff. Not I was fucking born with it in my hands.
Yeah. I remember as a young kid, because how old are you?
35.
35. So I'm 28. So but I still remember as a young kid, if I wanted to hang out with my friends, I would have to go to their house, knock on the door. Hey, can yada play, and we'd play outside. That's something my sister's age never got. They've always been immersed in technology. Like technology came into our lives, whereas for them it was a part of it. So to them, I think it's more of an extension of their own bodies than it is for us.
How about this too? I don't know if you had like a girlfriend or something in middle school or high school, but I used to have to call and talk to somebody else in their family first if I wanted to talk to them, until I think maybe high school, and was the first girl I dated who had caller ID. And so when I would call, nobody would just pick it up. They would let her pick. Somebody would yell, "Hey, it's for you." But I remember the first girl ever asking out in like 7th grade. I had to call and talk to her dad. Like first thing, there was no texting her. There was no like just communication with her. It was like, I have to call and talk to her father just to get her on the line.
So that's a generational difference, because we got texting in middle school. I remember I sent my first text in middle school. So that is a generational difference, because that is an experience I can't
sucked. I mean, I remember, and it also depended on the parents and the homes and stuff of who you're trying to call, but it made like, I remember dating a couple girls where every single time you had to call them, you're like, fucking talk to Bobby. God damn it.
That's a whole different thing where like, I can't imagine that world.
Yeah. I mean, it's maybe better that doesn't happen, but also at the same time, it does give you a slight more respect for how to talk to somebody from a young age, starting at 12 or 15, and just having a guy like being like, you call you like, hey, is Lauren there? And they're like, you say hello first. This you know who this is. You say hello to me, and then you ask to talk to my daughter, and you're like, sorry, hello, and then it makes it like it does teach you a little bit of skill in that way.
I also say this. There's probably a lot less ghosting if you have to talk to their dad first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You probably like truly. It's a lot less casual dating. I will say that. If you have to talk to a parent first, you kind of have to be a little interested. You can't just be like, well.
Well, and how much do we? I guess it's because like if somebody ghosts you, you can still see like they're posting and stuff, so they're not, they're not dead. Where like then if you just stop calling somebody, they would be like, we should probably check in on them. Like,
yeah, right.
All right. So I have end the podcast with this. I have a few videos to show you. Some of my favorite funny videos. How are you with fail videos? I feel like you have a sense of humor for them.
I do have a sense of humor for them. I don't like it when people break bones. So as long as I don't have to watch someone break a bone.
Well, you don't see the bone break. I'll give you that.
That's fair. I can handle that.
Yeah, there's no gore. No even like seeing a leg twisted backwards or anything.
Okay.
But they all have a funny element. That's why these are some of my favorite to show people, to get people's reaction. All right. Yes, share.
All right. Let's
so this first one, there might be. Let's go back here for a sec. This first one is skiing. This comes from the world of freestyle skiing that I used to be a part of, and has a audio element to it. That's what really makes it funny.
I will say this. Okay.
Oh, actually, this is the wrong clip. Hang on. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, nothingtoxic.com seems like there's a lot of toxic things on that site. If I had to guess.
No, this is the right clip.
The helicopter was just ready to come out and start filming. I just wanted to get one more in so I could, just be ready.
Ooh. Ow! Bro! My ankles are broken! My ankles are broke!
His ankles are broken!
I got a broken ankle!
He's coming, Cole!
Just didn't go fast enough.
We don't need to hear any more of his audio. They show a few more clips of...
Damn, the calmness in which he says it at first. The self-diagnosis is really funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very specific. He was extremely right too. His ankles were destroyed. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what you do. This is the best shot, right up close. Just
ooh. Wait, can you go back to the page the page before for a second? Because I saw something that made me laugh. No, to the previous page.
Oh yeah.
Sorry. I could be wrong about this. Yeah, dude, the second video, the guy spells retarded wrong.
That's so funny that somebody. I got to see this. Oh no, yeah, it's just.
It's the same video.
It's the same video. Yeah, maybe somebody else's point of view or something.
Oh, every time.
Ow! Fuck! My ankles are broken. My ankles
did you hear that though?
His ankles are broken.
He says, "Fuck." They edited it out of the other one.
Ow!
Oh, they edited that out.
My ankles are broken. My ankles
so.
are broke.
We gotta hear again.
Ow! Fuck!
No,
my
just the
ankles are broken. My ankles are broke.
His ankles are broken.
My favorite too is, I say this every time, the other guy yelling his ankles are broken. Like everybody didn't hear him fucking screaming it.
Like that's the quintessential pretending to do a job moment where it's like, oh, I don't really do anything here, so let me just repeat what the guy says.
I love that they said they spelled retarded wrong, but also that they would call, like, he's one of the greatest freestyle skiers of all time. So it's probably somebody with like a personal vendetta against Tanner Hall.
I was gonna say it's not like he did anything.
Did an amazing thing, like a huge fucking jump.
Yeah, it's not like it was a stupid thing he did, and it's clear to me that he's done stuff like this all the time. So it's like,
Oh yeah, that's
to
not a
call
first time fall.
to call him retarded is so funny.
All right,
Retarded.
next.
Damn.
And it's
It
clearly
really
not
shows
from
you how
Boston.
old
That is
YouTube
not a Boston retarded either.
No. It's crazy how like old YouTube is now. That video was 13 years old.
Yeah, and I guess that's probably around when it was done. Yeah, so this one is from 9 years ago. Yeah, because I mean that video's 13 years ago, but it's I could see like, oh, it just got posted 4 years ago. But I guess that's how long this shit's been getting put on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, I remember this.
You remember this one?
Oh, I remember because they said they put it on Sports Center, and
Yeah.
they had a counter of how high you went, and I was like, that's neat.
But here's the funny element of it. Oh, this is even different. Yeah, this is, God, I don't know what's up. I keep pulling up all the wrong versions of the video I always show. Here we go.
And if he hits that, he's got his backup plan covered. There's 720. Oh,
Amazing 720. Stomps the shit out.
Oh my God. Oh.
So you don't see it from that view. You don't see what really makes it funny.
Slam we've ever seen.
But on the replay,
He lands, he's just
Right
going
here.
so fast. He's trying to adjust his
Trying to
body.
adjust his feet and is trying to
He
get his
got
board
pitched a
back,
bit
and he
forward.
just, there it goes.
Oh, you saw his board go squarely up the
He's
wall.
15 feet up, and he just fell. Another,
shoes.
Oh man, that was
Both of his
Oh,
shoes
yeah.
go shooting off.
In different direction.
Yeah.
that's the worst
My-
spot he could
my-
have felt.
to me, the
He
funniest
turns
part
his
is
body and he says, "I'm right," and takes it. His
Oh.
shoes. Did you see that?
Yeah, that's the
And you also see how,
shoes
like,
just-
even with a helmet, there's a certain level you get to with a helmet where it still doesn't matter. Like, yeah, he may have died if he didn't have that helmet on, but he still got this fucking shit knocked out of him.
My favorite part about that, like to me, the funniest part about that video is on the original, the announcers are like, oh, like they're so excited when clearly something is wrong. Like
Oh, yeah.
they're still like, oh, this is crazy, and he's like flailing in the air. It's like, oh, come on, guys, how you can like? I feel like the announcers don't realize how bad it is until he crashes, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that was bad.
Yeah. Well, because, I mean, you clearly knew he'd fucked up, but it's hard to see watching it on TV where he is in relation to the quarter pipe, because guys will fall off their board like that and then just slide down on their knees and be totally fine. Sometimes, like, oh, here's another one, and this is a pretty funny one, is who is it? Crash with Danny Way.
Danny Way, the third one.
Oh, is it? Yeah. This one, he
20
flips
to a
the
big
deck.
540.
Oh, of course
and
they're going to show
if he
him
hits
first.
that, he's got his backup plan covered.
Oh, no, this is Jake Brown. Oops.
Yeah.
Did I hit the wrong one? God, no advertising on my podcast.
You don't have ad block. You gotta get the ad block, man.
Oh, I guess not. No. Just cut this out. And
All right.
Danny Way, who did not compete last year, but he's never lost. 3-time gold medalist in this.
backflip rocket air. He's got
he
it.
stomps that,
Covered.
and then
Allen 5 foot.
he clips it. He didn't come out over the deck. He, over the flat. He was over
He
the
hit
deck.
the coping so hard.
He just fucking completely clipped it. Let's see if they show
But
you.
oh, he hit that.
As you can see, medical straight
Oh,
there.
he hit it
with
at
Danny.
like his shins. Yeah.
Could not detect that he was over the lip like that, and he clipped to the lip coming in.
It goes to show you
That's where it goes
absolute
wrong the other way.
precision
You either hit the deck
that is
or you hit the lip
necessary
or you just
in
come
this
down.
sport. It's why these guys train as hard as they do day in and
But that one, his shoes don't come off, so it's not quite as funny.
Yeah, that one is just like, ooh, it also sounds a little worse for whatever
You hear
reason.
the ting. Yeah.
Yeah, the ting is the worst part.
And then here's the third one. And so, the first one, it's verbally is what cracks me up about it. The second is clearly the shoes. This one falls under its own category of videos. You can find a bunch of others of these online, and see if you can spot what it is. So this is Matt Hoffman and Dennis McCoy practicing doubles in BMX halfpipe.
Oh.
Clearly very hurt. And this falls under the category of no one's there to turn off the camera.
Yeah, it's like, damn. No one's there to help them at all.
Nope, it was just the two of them.
At least one's good enough to get up and walk.
Yeah. Yeah, one, I think they both got concussions, but one, I'll spare you because that one they do end up showing what happened. It gets gory, but
Thank you.
he, when they collided, the handlebars turned and stabbed him right in the top of his leg, lower abdomen area, and fucking just huge gash. But didn't go through his pants, didn't cut the pants, but just completely stabbed him under his pants. So he couldn't see it at first. He just knew oh, I got hit real bad, but didn't know he was just completely spliced open.
That's awful. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was definitely it's a rough one, and they go into it. But I love some of those videos. The best are I would say a 12-year-old kid trying something on a BMX bike for the first time, and they set up the camera themselves and then eat it. And then there's just a good 5 minutes of them crawling back to the camera or rolling around.
God damn. I guess when you bomb in an X Games, it's way worse than bombing on stage. At the very least, I can walk off.
Oh yeah, that's one of the biggest things going from skiing into stand-up is that made me less, I'd still get nervous when I first started and stuff, but I was like, I'm not going to die. There's no physical threat going up there. And it definitely has you have a different level of adrenaline going into it.
That's Jesus. That was intense.
Yeah, those guys are our age too, or older. At this point, Matt Hoffman's in his probably mid 40s, but they're probably 35, 36 doing that shit.
Jesus Christ. Relax,
Yeah.
Watch TV.
That's what I love here. Dudes Travis Pastrana.
Yeah.
He's just created nothing but same thing with Johnny Knoxville. He's like, if I want to make my bread, I got to fucking go huck my carcass at shit.
Huck my carcass. That's funny.
Well, especially, Travis Pastrana is a little more calculated. He's pretty good at what he does. But yeah, Steve-O and Knoxville and those guys, it's not go land the trick. Nobody wants to see them land.
Right. That's a good point. And so a lot of it is just ooh, what's about to what bad thing is about to happen?
Yeah, I can't imagine that. I think is an even crazier mentality of just going into something knowing you're getting hurt at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Were you maybe you're because you were a little younger, but was Jackass huge for you and your friends, and were you guys into doing any of that shit?
No, Jackass, I would say the peak of Jackass is when I might have been a little too young for it. At the time, we also didn't have cable. So I had heard of Jackass, but I had never seen it. And then by the time I had got cable, then it was the sort of peak of it was over. And yeah, so I never sort of caught the wave.
So, because I was very much, I was older, so Jackass, I had seen the skate videos before CKY. But I think I was out of, or it was maybe 18 or living out of the house by the time Jackass came out, but did not have cable until I was probably 16. We grew up with 3 channels, and
the 4.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they added the fourth, and we would occasionally get it on like a windy night.
Hilarious.
But how much do you feel as a comedian now? You were clueless to some shit that people fucking grew up with. Like I didn't watch any of the like Comedy Central presents in the early 90s and stuff because I didn't have it.
Right. Yeah. I've always felt like, not that I was clueless to pop culture, but like there was definitely like Jackass. There's definitely these pop culture things that I was aware of that I wasn't a part of.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that, but I think I was mostly aware of like the big trends.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember pretty much faking it, especially with with stuff like TGIF and like
Okay.
Boy Meets World and stuff. I would see it occasionally if I would have a sleepover at a friend's house, but I wasn't watching it every single week because we didn't have that channel. And I just remember just being like, yeah, I watch it. I watch that all the time.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, the need to fit in. I get that.
Oh yeah, I had that big growing up, the want to fit in. Also, I was homeschooled for a few years, and going from back to school after being homeschooled, you definitely miss a few years of how to like become friends, and so you always just feel. I felt many years after that like weird about fitting into groups of kids and stuff.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I always wanted to fit in. But I think I sort of accepted, like, okay, I'm cool now with being a bit outside of the box in that sense.
Yeah. I think LA too has definitely helped me in a way of just in the past few years of giving a shit a lot less about stuff and just worrying about what I do a lot more. And because it can fuck with your head here, I feel like, and you'll see it at the Comedy Store a lot. People who just completely bend who they are or just become like attached to somebody else because they think that'll help or something, and you just go,
yeah,
you're like either it's that or just really find out who you are and not fucking give a shit about other people's roads.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to be.
Absolutely. And speaking of roads, you have now created your own road with your new podcast, which is
the Dangerous Brown Podcast. Guys, check it out. If you like history, current events, I do it all.
Ehsan Ahmad, thank you so much for being on. And are you and Derek still doing Spoil the Beans?
Yes, so Spoil the Beans is also another podcast that I do. It's all about movies. So if you're a big movie fan, check out Spoil the Beans.
All right. Thanks so much for being on. And I hope did I just say your last name wrong, by the way? It's
Ehsan
Ahmad?
Ahmad. It's
Ahmad. Okay. I went Ahmad. I apologize.
Yeah, it's usually Ahmad is outside the box as well.
Okay, yeah, I feel like it's just the difference of an E or A, right?
Right, but it's usually always an E. So Ahmad is definitely like not what people are used to.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, stand out in that way.
Yeah.
All right,
do whatever you can.
Right. Thanks for talking to me. It was great seeing you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, talk to you later.
All right, later.